Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of the most confusing choices in all of golf: how to pick the right set of irons. If you've ever felt lost trying to figure out the difference between blades, cavity backs, and all that stuff, you're in the right place.
Yeah, you've heard all the terms, you've seen the clubs in the pro shop, but what do they actually mean for your game? It can feel like a really overwhelming choice, but trust me, it doesn't have to be. We're going to break it all down.
The biggest mistake people make is thinking of these as totally separate categories. The real key is to see it as a spectrum, a sliding scale really, that goes from maximum all-out help on one end to maximum pinpoint control on the other.
So let's start at the maximum help end of the spectrum. And look, let's just be honest with ourselves. This is where most of us should probably be looking. These are the irons that are specifically designed to make a really, really hard game just a little bit easier.
And this right here, this is probably the single most important piece of advice you're going to get today. Way too often, golfers buy clubs that look cool, the ones the pros play, instead of the ones that are actually going to help them shoot lower scores.
So what's the magic behind these forgiving irons? Well, a lot of them are actually built just like your driver or your fairway woods. They're hollow on the inside. And the reason is simple. It lets the face flex like a trampoline at impact for a whole lot more power.
But of course, there's always a trade-off, right? With these irons, you get some incredible benefits. More power, a higher launch, and a ton of forgiveness when you don't hit it perfectly. But what you give up is some of that surgical precision, that crisp feedback, and the ability to really shape your shots.
A fantastic real-world example is something like the Titleist T350. It's got all that helpful tech packed in there, the hollow body for power, a big wide sole to help with chunky shots, and even a bit of offset to fight that slice. But it still looks and feels like a top-quality iron.
And let's talk about that wide sole for a second, because it's a huge deal. It's designed to just glide through the grass instead of digging in. It also pushes a ton of weight low and back, which makes it so much easier to get the ball up in the air, even on a less-than-perfect strike.
Okay, let's slide over to the middle of the spectrum. This is the modern do-it-all package, the cavity back iron. And honestly, this is the category where a massive number of golfers find their perfect fit.
The idea here is actually pretty simple, but it's totally genius. Engineers basically scoop out all the metal from the middle of the club head and push that weight out to the very edges, the perimeter. What that does is make the club way more stable and forgiving on hits that aren't dead center.
You can think of cavity backs as the ultimate jack of all trades. They give you a really nice blend of that soft feel and good forgiveness, and they usually look fantastic behind the ball. The main trade-off? Well, you might lose a little bit of backspin, since they're often built to maximize distance and launch.
The Wilson Dynapower Forged is a perfect example of a modern cavity back. It's forged, which gives it that really solid, satisfying feel at impact, but it also has some seriously clever tech built in for that extra bit of help.
Now, if you look really close at the bottom of the club, you're going to notice these little slots. And they have a pretty unique name.
Yep, they're literally called power holes.
And yeah, it's an absolutely terrible name. I think we can all agree on that. But terrible name aside, they actually have a real purpose. They let the face flex more for extra ball speed, and they help engineers move weight around for, you guessed it, even more forgiveness. All right, now we arrive at the far end of the spectrum, the aspirational end. These are the clubs built for the best ball strikers on the planet, players who demand absolute control over their shots and the purest feel imaginable. So a blade, or what's often called a muscle back, is pretty much the polar opposite of a cavity back. Instead of scooping weight out and pushing it to the edges, all the mass is concentrated right behind the dead center of the face. And the trade-off with blades is, well, it's dramatic. What you gain is the ultimate control over your ball flight and spin, plus a feel at impact that is just unmatched. But you sacrifice pretty much all of the forgiveness. If you miss the center, this club is going to let you know loud and clear. Just look at the TaylorMade P7 MBs. They forged these things with an immense amount of pressure to create this incredibly dense, solid feel. But they demand precision. The feedback they give you is instant and, frankly, brutally honest about how well you just struck the ball. This really shows the completely different design philosophy. Remember that big, wide sole on the forgiving iron that was made to slide? Well, this is the exact opposite. A blade has a razor-thin sole designed to cut through the turf like a scalpel. It is built for precision, not for help.
Okay, so after looking at this whole spectrum, from maximum help to maximum control, how do you actually put it all together and choose the right iron for your game?
Think of this table as your ultimate cheat sheet. The most important thing you can do is be completely honest with yourself about your player profile on the left. Are you a really consistent ball striker, or do you struggle with that sometimes? Your honest answer is going to point you directly to the benefits that will actually help you shoot lower scores.
And you got to remember that this spectrum can go even further. There are clubs out there called super game improvement irons that are basically half iron, half hybrid. They have one single mission: get that ball up in the air no matter how you hit it. They might not look traditional, but they offer the absolute peak of forgiveness.
So I'll leave you with this one last thought. The next time you're looking at a beautiful, shiny new set of irons, just ask yourself this question. The best-looking iron in your bag isn't the one that looks like it belongs to a tour pro. It's the one that actually helps you play better golf.